We're next going to be welcoming our guests from Bayer. And I think the Chancellor would agree with me that industry partnerships are so important, and it's fitting that they have a center here on campus, and they are our platinum sponsor for this event today. So it's a pleasure to welcome Shannon Hauf, who is the Senior Vice President and Head of Seed Production for Bayer in the US. And she has an incredible story. I'll say I had fun reading about her and her background in preparation for this event. There's much written about her because she has an interesting story. She's somebody who grew up on a farm. Her family had corn and soybeans, like many of our growers that are participating today in the Midwest. She was part of 4-H and FFA, and I know our College of ACES has many students who have participated in those events and proudly support student organizations involved in those activities that promote agriculture. She and her family continue to have farming even in the St. Louis area. She's a true global leader in science and agriculture, and some of her work really describes her championing women in science, women in agriculture, which seems very fitting this week as we celebrated International Women's Day to welcome one of the top leaders in global agriculture from Bayer. Please join me in welcoming Shannon Hauf.
So thanks, Laura. So certainly on behalf of Bayer, we welcome you to the 2021 AgTech Summit, and we appreciate the opportunity to participate in this morning's session. I'm not sure if there's time for questions at the end or a way of submitting questions, but if there is, I've certainly left a few minutes. So giving you a heads up, don't be shy, certainly submit your questions. As I mentioned, we really value the partnership with the University of Illinois and the Bayer Innovation Center, not only in delivering innovation, but most importantly, developing talent with an interest in agriculture. As mentioned, I grew up on a farm and still live on a farm today, and certainly we all know the challenges agriculture has in feeding the world, and how few individuals are actually directly tied to agriculture. This development of talent that will enter the industry prepared really through a world-class education in ways I wouldn't have imagined 20 years ago when I was leaving college. Receiving an education not only in agronomy or engineering, but really developing a cross-disciplinary skill set that gives them the opportunity to build knowledge and developing digital tools, which are becoming incredibly important, not just in our daily lives as consumers, but certainly in agriculture as well. Building their business acumen before they even enter the workforce, and while living locally, thinking globally, which perhaps I would argue could be the most important. As I reflect on my 18 years here at first Monsanto and now Bayer, I have been in 5 organizations, starting as tech services at the research farm in Monmouth, Illinois, moving to product management, research and development, strategy, and now product supply, leading teams of scientists in 22 countries around the world. The importance in gaining the breadth of understanding and education cannot be more important in agriculture, where global connectivity increases every day. Farmers are not only connecting at the coffee shop, like my father is really good at doing today, they are connecting through social media platforms around the world. I remember the first time walking down to a hotel breakfast in a small rural agriculture town in Brazil, not too different than Urbana-Champaign area, and seeing friends who worked in agriculture from the US. Now, while that was rare 15 years ago, today those situations occur frequently, not only in Brazil, but around the world. As we focus on solving today's and tomorrow's problems, I want to take time this morning to discuss the important role innovation, sustainability, and diversity play in ensuring a vibrant future in agriculture and meeting the challenges of a growing population. We learned through COVID the importance of needing a more resilient supply chain, not in one place of the supply chain, but across the entire supply chain. In less than 24 hours, shelves in stores became empty, and where there was still product on those shelves, prices increased at rates at which some of our most vulnerable could not afford. While most of us reference shortages of toilet paper and paper towels, which are important, we cannot forget the bareness of grocery store shelves and freezers that occurred in a time frame of hours. Innovation and digital tools will be important in agriculture, from building a more resilient supply chain to providing farmers with better tools to managing their crops. At the height of our challenges with managing COVID 1 year ago, we learned in our seed quality labs in our product supply organization, which is the very last step before shipping seeds to farmers around the world, that automation was no longer viewed as nice to have because of increased reliability and better data. It was the only way we could continue our operations when we no longer could safely operate with people in small, tight spaces. Innovation continues in areas we are familiar with: higher yielding seeds, better crop protection products, and improved precision equipment. But the real opportunities are bringing a suite of solutions forward that better solves the problem than if we utilize them individually. We no longer think about innovation as products, but innovation of solutions or outcomes, one that might take many innovations. As example, utilizing UAVs or drones for spray systems that now requires a new crop protection formulation, changing not only how we apply the product, but also what is applied. And of course, expecting better outcomes of performance and improved gains in efficiencies while improving our footprint relative to sustainability. In agriculture, we have the challenge of feeding a hungry world while caring for the fragile planet. It's hard to imagine a fragile planet in many areas of Illinois, such as Monmouth, my first stop out of college 18 years ago, or even our home farm in southern Minnesota, where we are harvesting yields higher than we ever dreamed and doing it with fewer inputs. Fewer inputs because of the innovations in seeds, crop protection, fertilizer, equipment, and digital tools. In many ways, we are lucky. Because so, we have a greater responsibility of raising crops and food using sustainable practices. The unfortunate reality is our most fragile places on Earth, places like Africa, India, Southeast Asia, are the places where millions of smallholder farmers rely on those very crops to feed their family. As example, a family in Africa grows corn only to grind it on site and use those grits to feed their families. A catastrophic weather event has dire consequences for human life. In line with the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations and the Paris Agreement, Bayer has set ambitious targets to be achieved by 2030. Our areas of focus include combating hunger, providing access to healthcare, fighting poverty, empowering women, protecting the land, and tackling the impacts of climate change through greenhouse gas reductions and carbon initiatives with a focus on the ability for farmers to participate. At Bayer Crop Science, we aim to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 30% in crops through climate smart solutions, driving towards a carbon zero future in agriculture. This includes reducing the emissions in our own operations. In collaboration with our farmer partners, our North America seed production footprint currently offsets its entire plant operation footprint with field carbon sequestration practices. This was accomplished through sustainable farming practices like cover crops, minimum tillage, and prescriptive nutrient, water, and harvest recommendations. At our sites, we are focused on initiatives that reduce opportunities, that reduce energy, and create site-level key performance indicators. Surveying our sites for opportunities in energy savings utilizing LED lighting, and limiting electricity and gas use through better dryer optimization. While doing this, we ensure we deliver the highest quality seeds to farmers around the world. Similar accomplishments to those we've achieved in North America are occurring at our seed production sites around the world. As we mentioned, we celebrated on Monday International Women's Day. Discussing the role of diversity, in this case gender, seems like an obvious fit. Women are 54% of college graduates today, even in agriculture. The talent coming through the Bayer Innovation Center mirrors this number. It is the job of leaders like myself to make sure young women who leave our universities represent in the future half the seats at every table, from the farm table to the board table. At Bayer, we champion a culture of inclusion and diversity and recently announced our goal in achieving gender parity at all levels of leadership in all of our divisions by 2030. We know the value diversity brings in innovation. My favorite example is the soybean trait technology Roundup Ready to Yield, the single largest soybean trait technology grown today across North and South America. While Roundup Ready to Yield trait was launched in 2009, and hundreds of individuals played an important role in ensuring the success from development to launch, it was 4 women scientists at Monsanto, now Bayer, who invented and selected the final biotech event, MON 89788. As I close, it's important to remember, if we are to meet the needs of a growing population while overcoming the challenges in producing crops, innovation is not just critical, it is needed. Importantly, we need everyone's ideas on the table in solving these challenges. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Shannon. I think that was really inspiring and so great to hear how you're championing inclusion of women and leadership in science at Bayer through the goals that you've set. I think you've said you'd like to take a few questions, so we'll see if we get any from the chat session, and I'll ask my colleague Laura Blyle to help me moderate as well. So maybe if we start, how are you setting diversity goals? And I think you just spoke a little bit to that of some of the number targets that you're setting and metrics and accountability.
Yeah, and so I can talk about a couple things that we're focused on, right? So we obviously have metrics by which we're measuring ourselves, not just in the long term, but in the near term too. So by 2025, our metric is that 1/3 of our senior leadership or executive leadership would be women. I can tell you today, and it's certainly an honor to be in this position, 70% of the senior leaders in my organization are women today.
Wow.
And 42% of the leaders across my entire organization around the world are women. And so can it be done? Yes. I mean, we need to be motivated to do it. And other organizations have similar outcomes as well. But what we're focused on is developing and advancing leaders. And so making sure that when there's an opportunity for a role to be open, we have women who have been developed for that leadership opportunity. And that's a significant focus as well. And ensuring fair slates, right? When I think about the challenges of any diversity, right? We're also focused on not just gender, but other diverse backgrounds as well, is making sure that both our panels and our slates are fair. And if it means holding a row open longer, we will do it. And we will make sure that we recruit aggressively to find the right talent.
Thanks. There was a question about transitioning from software engineering to ag, and I might phrase it differently because I think those two collide, at least what we see with Bayer at their innovation center. They employ lots of software engineers working at their company, working on new digital transformation. Can you talk about how tech is playing a role in advancing things like your world of crop breeding and such?
Yeah, I mean, so we'd love for software engineers. We are hiring software engineers. I would tell you today we're hiring more software engineers than probably agronomists. When I look at my organization. So actually, we will be bringing in 5 interns to my organization, of which 2 will be focused in software engineering. data science. So that just gives you the perspective of the transition of, not that agronomy is not important, it will always be important, but how do you mirror and partner the practical research and the applied research of agronomy with, developing digital tools, and having software engineers being able to do that. So I wouldn't say it's a transition to, I would say it's a part of, right? So software engineering is very much a part of our organization, so much that, we are aggressively hiring talent in this space. And I have a team that's specifically focused on software or on digital tools, where we have a number of software engineers.
And not only interns, I imagine there are many full-time roles
Absolutely.
in St. Louis
Yep.
and
So,
other locations.
so they'll actually report to an individual who is an engineer in this space, and she is leading all of our digital tools in virtual factories. So we do a lot of virtual factory, which is, mirroring what would occur at a site level, utilizing data and digital tools to better predict our outcomes in our field production sites.
I'd like to thank Bayer and Climate Corporation also for their support of our crop sciences department, which we'll hear from later today, but they were a leader in creating a curriculum of both crop sciences and computer science, the first in the country to have such a curriculum, really because this has become so important. The next question we have is about carbon space. We're going to talk about carbon credits. There's been a lot of talk about this in the last year. Can you share more of your thoughts for growers on the carbon space?
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? All the companies are kind of thinking about how we're going to play in this space. Certainly, I know at Bayer we've got a dedicated effort, and we'll have a small program this year looking at how can we partner with farmers in making sure that they receive some of the value, right? So if we're going to make this work in agriculture, farmers have to be part of the equation in receiving the value. So if there's value created, they're going to have to be part of receiving it. Otherwise, the opportunities become small. And I know Secretary Vilsack recently, I think it was yesterday or day prior, spoke a lot about what his thoughts are on carbon, and others have shared as well. I would tell you it's moving. It moves slow at first, but when it gains momentum, I think it'll move quickly. It's going to take some learning along the way. I will tell you the first programs that are launched will not be the last programs that will probably be what we end up doing. It's going to be kind of learning and testing, and eventually adapting as we move forward. But Bayer will participate in this space, and both me personally, having farming interest, and also as a leader in our company, it will be important that farmers are included in this journey, and that they actually receive certainly the value and the benefits from implementing the practices in which carbon is sequestered into the soil.
Thank you. We have a question about the developing world, and I think some of your research really goes out and sees where there are challenges in other countries and other production environments. Can you talk about diversity that you see, especially amongst women, perhaps in some of the developing world that play an active role in farming?
Yeah, so when you get, interestingly, when you get into smallholder farmers, about between 40-45% of smallholder farmers are actually women. And so women do much of the work. If you're going to walk into a smallholder farm in India, as an example, where I've had the opportunity to travel when I was leading our global cotton business, you'll find women working in the fields. And in many of those instances, women are the primary caretaker for the farm. And it becomes really important because when you empower women in a smallholder situation, you change not the life of her, but the life of her family, and eventually the life of that community. And that's impactful. And so, and I say it's bigger than, when people talk about, introducing new technologies in smallholder farming, it could be as simple as just better seeds. They are starting with such basic needs that it doesn't have to be, something extravagant. It can be really basic as just giving them better seeds that really change their lives. And when you've seen what it can do, I mean, they can send their children to a school, which, a lot of children in India, as example, would not go to a school. They can put a roof on their house. And I know it seems odd to grow up in a house without a roof, but go to India or Africa, and you won't find a lot of houses that have roof. And so it's giving them opportunities that don't just feed their families, but change their lives. And that's the impact that we hope to make. We are committed to bringing technology to 100 million smallholder farmers. After this year, we're about a third of the way there. And we will not give up on this mission. It is so important that everybody has access to technology.
Great. Speaking of technology, there's been an increasing volume of data in ag. How do you use all that data to make better advances in agriculture?
Yeah, our team, we actually met last week for 3 half days and talked about, we don't have a lack of data, right? There is more data there than we know what to do with. It's how do we figure out how to use it and how best to use it. And as we look at our operations, so I lead products, product supply, research and development for our seeds business. It's taking the data that we have so we can make better decisions that, improve the quality of the seeds that we bring to market. It may improve the way we produce the seeds, but thinking about, I've told you, we don't need to go create more data. We need to figure out how to best use the data. And so I'll come back to that question around the software engineer, right? This is why we're hiring software engineers. We have data. We now need to make tools like a virtual factory where we can take all the data we've collected in our sites, our labs, in an end-to-end supply chain, and create the virtual world where we can predict outcomes if we make changes. And that's where data comes together with our facilities and with software engineering to really help us run a better business. And so I would say we don't need more data. We just need to figure out what to do with the data that we have.
Shannon, there are some that would like to connect with you. I know you're active
Absolutely.
on Twitter and you've got a LinkedIn account. Is it okay if people reach out to you?
Absolutely.
Online?
No, I love to connect with people. Yeah, just go to LinkedIn, send me a note, and I'll be happy to reach out for sure.
So you mentioned the Bayer Innovation Center that we have here at the Research Park that employs students. And there's a mix, I think, of international and domestic students. And I think undergrads and grad students. I've seen recent postings around grad students. Can you talk a little bit about the types of students that you hope will be part of your center?
Yeah, for us, and I come back to this, developing talent in partnership with the University of Illinois. Gosh, that's an incredible opportunity and one that really is an honor to be able to do in those types of partnerships. I think we know, the type of talent that comes through the University of Illinois is talent we want to enter Bayer. Whether they enter Bayer in St. Louis or Kenya or China or, the small town I talked about in Brazil, we want them to be part of our company, and we view the opportunities that they get in partnering with us will not only just provide them opportunities to develop, but it gives us an opportunity to see the talent that exists in our industry for us to hopefully be able to make a transition. And so I think, we know not every student that works at the Bayer Innovation Center will come work at Bayer. But it's our hope that they get the opportunity to see the great work that our teams are doing and be a part of it and find a career in agriculture. And certainly when they're thinking about a company to work for, that they think about Bayer. I started out as an intern at Asgrow. And through that, you can see, I think a lot of people would tell you the company they're in, they might have started out as an intern. And that was my case. I started out as an intern, and here I am all these years later, having quite an exceptional career, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's wonderful. I won't get too much into a difficult regulatory environment sometimes in ag tech, sometimes a litigious one. But this question came from, I think, Dave Shequin, who is our former Dean of Agriculture here and was our former Vice President of Technology that was instrumental in the foundations of the research park. So maybe you can talk a little bit about the challenges of freedom to operate in this space.
Yeah, so certainly, I think that we can't ignore the challenges that our regulatory environments around the world face, and largely driven by politics. I think if science could carry its weight and carry the day, the regulatory processes could be easier to navigate. And that's part of the challenge, right? Is we have a continuous change of rules, and so we're constantly moving as we're developing innovation. So I'll give you an example. If you think about biotechnology, you're going to develop a technology that we identify today, or a gene that we identify today, will not come to market for probably 12 to 14 years. And so you can think about the changing political and regulatory environment that occurs over that 12 to 14 years, which makes it challenging. And of course, I think one thing we've been really proud of at Bayer is to have been able to navigate those very well. And you have to navigate it regardless of the administration that's in policy, regardless of where it is around the world. We have to be able to partner and provide them the information that they need. But it doesn't go without saying that in recent years, the difficulty to get technologies approved around the world in crop protection products around the world has become increasingly difficult.
Well, thank you. I think that's going to be our last question for you. Thank you for being generous with your time and interacting with our audience. We will have Blake Giles, who leads the Bayer Innovation Center, on one of our panels this afternoon, talking more about student involvement and intern roles that they have here at the University of Illinois. So for any of you students that are participating, please check out the session with Blake. And we're having a networking session later today that you'll be able to learn more about career opportunities. I hope you were as inspired as I was learning more about Shannon's career pathway from intern to senior vice president. I hope that that's an inspiration to all you students who are thinking about internships and what their roles can have on a career trajectory, and your thoughts about where the ag industry is heading and Bayer's leadership in the space. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much, Laura. I appreciate the opportunity.